Derek, are you with us?
Yes, chef. How are you?
There he is. We're ready to go in 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Real Hospitality Live.
Excellent.
Today we have Derek Engles, who is a personal branding professional, is a master sommelier candidate, is a beverage director with the world famous Wynn in Las Vegas, and recently app developer as well. Today, we're going to
Yes.
talk about everything from leadership to apps to how technology can help us in the hospitality industry, and also how to brand yourself and a whole lot of shop talk. How are you, Derek?
I'm an outstanding chef. Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for being on.
Really
Now,
appreciate it.
I mentioned the app, and in today's age, somebody mentions an app, and every eye in the house rolls. People go, are we with your app and what you've developed? We've had a great conversation about this, but it's really from the industry for the industry that we are approached for it. And tell me a little bit about it, because the selling feature on it really here is the thoughtfulness that's gone into the application.
Yeah, chef, it's the culmination of a lot of experience is where it comes from. The technology is certainly important, and what I've come up with is certainly going to benefit restaurants. But coming from the lens of a lot of experience, working in a lot of restaurants and a lot of different places across the country is really where the idea and the execution comes from.
Mm.
Figuring out the pain points that restaurant managers face, whether it be in New York, upstate New York, Florida, or Las Vegas, all the places that I've worked, there is a congruency with the issues that those professionals face. And I wanted to address some of those head on. I wanted to make sure that I was not just creating a piece of technology just to simply sell, drop in an app store and walk away from. I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to jump in and get involved. I wanted to really try to solve some of these problems on a macro scale.
Right.
And that's where it comes from. Lots of technology people can develop apps or can come up with the next latest and greatest piece of tech for the hospitality industry. But this is born out of my experience and the trials and tribulations that I've faced, and wanting to help those professionals achieve what they can with a little bit of help on the tech side.
For me, I'm always on the edge of that sword with technology for specifically for the industry, because I'm often leery of people who design tech for the industry who aren't of the industry. We talked yesterday about how many times have you walked into a kitchen or walked into a bar that was designed by somebody who has no idea how to and have never worked in one.
That is so true. And, for me, having spent more time behind a bar than behind a line, where the dishwasher goes, where the sinks go, where do the speed racks go? That can only be decided by people who have worked on a Saturday night at 9 o'clock with the service well full and the bar full. You have to have that lens of experience, I believe, to really make the changes that are necessary for the pros to do what they do better. And that's where this comes from. I mean, I am certainly working with a development team, and because I don't know how to code very well. But at the end of the day, I felt like the project management, I felt like the execution and the functionality needed to come from a place of my experience and what I've done in the business and what I've seen, and that was the most important part for me, for sure.
Well, what we a few of the points that we talked about and there's a whole lot of cool stuff that this thing does. And to be clear, you're in beta stage right now, correct?
Yeah, so we're doing the debugging and just fine tuning some of the features. I have a very interesting give and take with my team. Obviously, they're in another country, there's language barriers, but we've come to this working arrangement where I'm able to kind of really manage that project step by step. So we're debugging right now, getting ready to set up a kind of what I call a soft beta. And again, this is one of those things where apps have this tried and true method of rolling out, right? They go through beta, they put all the results online, then they put it on the internet, and then they get all types of exposure. But for me, I wanted to get that feedback from pros. I wanted to make sure that I could use it in the restaurant that I work in, and I make sure I could use it in the restaurants my friends work in, and then, get that feedback. So beta is going on all the time, right? Getting these feedbacks, and then we're looking at more of an official launch coming up mid-May.
Well, I mean, some of the things that we talked about with the app itself and in your environment. I mean, you're in Vegas. You're in a busy, famous hotel with lots of employees. You have lots of challenges. There are unionized employees as well in there too. Let's talk about some of the things that this app does. I mean, it's called Virtual Restaurant Manager,
Mhm.
which of course is the name of your website as well. So what how does an app help a restaurant manager where we already have 10 million other things going on anyway?
Well, and that's the key, right? Is to take some of those tasks day in and day out and streamline them a little bit and not add more. We don't want to get into a situation where managers are having to take training classes weeks on end,
Yeah,
add more stuff onto the pile of duties that they already have. So I wanted to take the key points, and number one is communication. It's so difficult, and I don't know why, because we have the tech in our pocket. It's, we're walking around with it, but communicating with our employees in real time is very, very difficult. And getting information into our employees' hands, into their pocket, is even more difficult. And it usually comes down to us having to print things on paper and hand them out in a pre-shift or meeting environment. So that was the first and foremost, right? Let's cut down the paper waste. Let's stop our employees discarding our hard work immediately after it's handed out. That was job one for me. So take the communication tools that are, available out in the ecosystem of web applications, and make it more for a restaurant professional. Make it
right.
so that they could take their PDF that they just created on the new menu item, new wine by the glass, and have them be able to upload that into the app from the desktop and export it immediately out to the staff members. That was job one. There's a lot of other things that I added on as I fixed that problem, but for me it was, let's cut down on the paper waste and let's keep that information flowing into our employees' hands at all times.
So it's web based too, right? So I mean, that takes away the learning curve of, oh, we have to teach our restaurant managers and middle managers how to
Yeah,
use this thing, where it's
absolutely.
simplified and web based. So what are some of the things that it actually does? I mean, there's almost a mystery behind technology, because we all think people who are either not Mark Zuckerberg uh, aren't building something that's going to be useful for our life. So what?
Sure.
So and the thing that got me super excited about when we first started talking about it, is the real time communication.
Yeah. So a couple different ways. So number one is I wanted to make it so that the manager, which usually operates from the desktop computer in their office, there's very few restaurants or organizations that I've seen that allow a general manager or a restaurant manager to operate all of the necessary functions from a laptop at their home.
Right.
So I wanted to make it so that when the manager is at their computer, and a lot of this is born from scheduling and seeing the massive amounts of schedule changes that I witness when you have a staff of 100 employees. Things change, and the restaurant business, you got to get people in early sometimes. So that was the crux of it. How do I get the schedule into people's hands, stop them from taking pictures on their phone over by the bulletin board every time they come in, and let's get this going. So I created a way to save that PDF file. You utilize the regular Microsoft Office ecosystem that every office manager uses. You save it in a PDF, and then you just literally drag it and drop it into the web portal, and send it out. If you're sending it out to the entire staff, you can do that. If you're sending it out just to the bus staff or the wait staff, because that's the schedules that changed, you can do that as well. And once I figured out how to do that, how to deliver that PDF technology from desktop to app in the employee's pocket, then I really started going down the rabbit hole. What about the training? What about the new menu items? What about the new wine by the glass that I love handing out? That I've spent an eternity creating training material on that ends up in the paper basket.
Right.
Um, and then just deeper and deeper, and then started realizing, well, if they can save that information, keep it in their pocket, they can study on their own time.
Right.
And then, we just keep going from there, and it's really endless. I also wanted to create a bulletin board, a real-time bulletin board where you could put YouTube videos and dynamic training pieces and things that maybe weren't pertinent to that individual night. But, you stand up in pre-shift and you say, hey guys, I just put a brand new webinar from YouTube on our new Wagyu beef that we put on. Can you guys just in your spare time watch that? I wanted there to be an ease of use, and I wanted there to be all different types of communication that the management staff could utilize to get that information out into their hands.
Right. So what's the buy-in for staff? I mean, the being able to get that information out, but the getting the staff to use it. How do you know they're going to use it? And how do you get them all on board? And they might go, I got another app or whatever else. How do you how do you know that they've actually read the material that you're sent out or read the message?
Sure, right. Getting the employee buy-in is the magical hat trick of a great restaurant manager. Getting your staff excited and enthusiastic about anything, from a new dish to a new app, is a trick, and it requires a professional touch. However, there is an incentive for staff members nowadays to have this information. And as we get into a situation where there's a lot of competition, there's a lot of menu prices that keep getting pricier and pricier. That knowledge base is so important for not only to get hired, but also to keep your employment. There's a lot of stuff to learn. I think employees know that it's in their best interest to be educated. How we educate them is our job. That's the
Right.
leadership's job. So the buy-in comes in terms of ease of use. No more walking around with a stack of papers in your back pocket. Getting the up-to-date information in your staff's hands creates basically legitimacy for your management staff, right? They're on board, and then you can really start doing some fun stuff with it. The videos don't have to be canned, right? You can get your chef getting some cool pictures together and creating some cool documents,
Right.
maybe some contests or anything that you want to do with that to get that buy-in. And I think that enthusiasm about the product will be unlocked, and just seeing how easy it is, not having to worry about, did I get trained on something? Did something change on my days off? My schedule changed and I don't feel like driving or calling the manager staff. Can I just look online? I think that once we get that up and running, that's where the employees are like, wow, this is going to make my life easier. And I don't know any restaurant employee who doesn't want their life to be a little bit easier. That's where our buy-in comes from. And on the management side, always important, right? We want to trust but verify. So how we verify is that there is a feedback piece, that when a manager sends out a PDF document to an individual staff member or to a group of staff, there is a ping that receives back to the
Well, there's the
management
magic.
staff to make sure that they have opened and received that information. So I
That's the magic
wanted to
right there.
make it, yeah, I wanted to make it on both sides, right? Let's make it as easy as possible. Yeah.
The cool thing about that is, and I always say this because there's always a pre-show the day before the show where we get into this big long chat, and Derek and I talked for over an hour, which we should have just recorded.
I know.
But but things like 86 items, to be able to send that out, and not just have to, tell Mary and Beth, the two supervisors, run around and tap everybody on the shoulder. Oh, we're 86 this, or we're out of that. Only to have them go and ring 3 more in. But that alone is huge, to be able to instantly communicate, because
Yes.
if the server's going to have that in their pocket regardless, barman's going to have it in their pocket regardless, right? Even the applications for kitchen staff, or for the chef to be able to pop into the office and send out we're 86 lobster tail, right, in real time,
Yes.
is huge. I mean,
and another thing too is I like the fact that, I had a very, very wise manager tell me once, it's one thing to 86 something and write it on the board, but don't send them out there with nothing else to sell. And for me, when I'm 86ing a wine, and let's say it's the most popular wine on the list, am I doing the full service to my staff if I just give them, oh, this is 86, sell something else? I want to be able to give them 3 other things to sell. I want to be able to say, okay, Chateau XYZ is 86. We sell a ton of it. Here's 2 other things and 2 different price points that'll really get people excited, even though their favorite product is out. So not only are we delivering that information, that's a chance for us to throw an ounce of training in onto something. And I think that's going to be another really cool piece that will be utilized by the management staff.
Well, that's a learning opportunity, right? So
yes,
for you to be able to give other options. I think the scheduling thing is awesome too, where you can, for example, if you need all the bussers to come in early to set up for a big party, or maybe you had a big reso cancel and you don't need those extra 2 servers to either come in tonight, or you don't need to come in at 4 o'clock, you need them to come in at 6 o'clock. That communication is key, rather than having to try and get somebody on the phone, or they get there and they've got to sit, you've got to pay them, all of that. So
exactly,
being able to break that communication down into like one straight line. We joked yesterday about the telephone game, where you say, well, we're 86 filet mignon, and it turns into a story about Mary's cat 3 people down the road. And you lose the detail, right?
Absolutely. And that's a huge piece of it. One thing I did find too is that I wanted to look at the competition, and I wanted to look at what other people are doing in this space. And there's some actually really cool scheduling apps out there.
Sure.
However, there's just something there that large corporations and organizations are not latching onto. And that's the fact that a lot of those applications are integrating themselves into the intellectual property of these large organizations. They're getting financial information. They're using that to market to their employees. I wanted to make it simple. I wanted to make it drag and drop PDF, send it off, and end of story. I didn't want to get employee information, phone numbers, addresses, things like that. There's no need for that kind of stuff. I wanted there to be no intellectual property violations and no information technology downtime. And that's what I notice a lot of the competitors that I'm going up against have. And I wanted to be able to sit in front of the C-suite, in front of the executives of a large corporation, and say, no, I don't want your employees' data. I don't want to integrate myself into your scheduling and into your back office stuff. All I want you to do is to be able to open the web browser, log in, send it out, end of story, no integration necessary.
Right. Excuse me. I think the selling feature there is also for the ease of use, to be able to sit down not only in front of the head of 300 restaurants, but in front of the managers themselves, right? Mm-hmm. to get their buy-in, also because when we first started talking about it, I said, give me the finer points on it, and as soon as we started the conversation, it turned into an hour-long Q&A where we got so excited about it. And I feel like that's going to happen when you get in front of managers. They go, oh my God, you just saved me, having to leave the pass-through, or having to, take time away from doing table touching and mm-hmm. And all this other stuff. we can send that information out. It's clear, it's concise, it's relevant, it's thought of from an industry point of view, not from a tech point of view.
And look, if there's one thing that we need to do for our general managers and our managers, and that's keep them on the floor, keep them doing what it is hospitality is all about, right? We don't need our restaurant managers in the office with laborious paperwork and all of these spreadsheets to be done. Let's get our management staff back on the floor, interacting with guests, building that rapport with our clientele, and go back to the root of what hospitality is, and that's just making our guests feel at home. And you can't do that from an office, and it's hard to do that when you've slugged your guts out all night and you have a stack of paperwork to do for 3 hours.
Yeah.
It's 2 a.m, you got to come back in the next day. We really have to make this easier and more effective so that our people can do what they're brilliant at, and get away from this intensive office work that we've kind of gone down, unfortunately.
Well, I'll tell you, it becomes so burdensome, and I'm going to say it bluntly, it pisses me off that operators give managers who they say, you're not spending enough time on the floor, you're not spending enough time, doing this, or the other thing. And this is the age old thing, where operators will say, oh, well, but we want you to do all of this busy work in the office. So, and what happens is servers can't find a manager when they need one. Bartenders can't find a manager when they need one, right? And the manager, it's not that they're necessarily hiding in the office. Some of them do, and there's a special place in hell for those people. But
Yeah.
but a lot of them get stuck in there because they don't want to be going home at 4 o'clock in the morning, or they have to go in and address something that's timely throughout the shift. So they get burdened with all of this extra stuff. And if this is so simple that they can communicate with their entire staff, not have to leave the office, or if it was accessible even from their own master application on their phone,
Yes.
and they could send that information out as well. Because I mean, let's face it, the laptop works exactly the same as the iPhone does.
Yep.
Right? So if you can do that from, hey, I've got to duck behind the bar here, or I'm gonna go back in the storage area and send this off so people don't see me kind of monkeying around on my phone.
Yeah.
That saves that. I mean, there's 20 minutes, there's an hour worth of planning, preparing, and all of this. So I mean, I get super excited, as you can tell, about this being able to help managers communicate in that way, and to take that burden off, right? It's almost a retention tool.
Absolutely. And a retention tool, right? Like, tell me we don't need more retention tools for our best and brightest in our industry.
Yeah.
I really feel like we have to start making this a little bit easier for everybody to do what they're really supposed to be doing, and that's making the people that frequent our establishments happy. And I think a lot of that happiness and lack thereof in restaurant management comes from just not being able to do what they want to do, spend time on the floor, talking to guests, finding out. And that's really where you get your feedback to develop your menu, to develop your marketing ideas, right? You get that feedback from people. And when you're constantly inundated with all these new tasks and new assignments and basically busy work, it takes you out of the real game that needs to be played, and that's being with our guests, driving their happiness. And I think you'd unlock a lot more enthusiasm on your management staff if they were able to do that, instead of constantly worrying about just the whole spreadsheet thing has just gotten so crazy. So that's what we're trying to do.
Well, when you allow the people that you hired to be the shining light, the beacon, the trainer, the example, which is really what we want our managers to be, right? We want our supervisors and our managers to be how we want everyone else to act, and to build that culture, right? So Grant Cardone has a saying: "Be the beacon, not the tugboat." So when we're hiring and these people to be beacons, we can't just make it so hard for them to be out there and be enthusiastic and be that personality that we want everybody else to emulate, when they're overwhelmed with all of this other stuff. and we talk about retention, and I mean, anything we can do to help with retention, not only on the front lines, but people don't necessarily want to get into restaurant management once they figure out that they're going to spend, X percentage amount of their time being crushed by, these additional tasks that have nothing to do with show business.
Boy, that's the truth, right? And it's such a shocking thing when I do a lot of mentorship. So I get the question a lot from people, younger, maybe college age. UNLV, the local university here, has a fantastic hospitality program. So you get those questions. How do I become a sommelier? What's it like being a restaurant manager at really fancy restaurants? Or, my son or daughter is thinking about going to UNLV for hospitality management. What's the best course, right? And, unfortunately, I always feel like I'd be doing a disservice if I did not, really display the difficulty in terms of, you work a lot of holidays, you work a lot of hours. There's a lot of things that could be perceived as downside. So I think that, especially after they get through these degrees and they come in and you have your 25, 26 years old, you're missing your holidays with your families for the first time. Guys like us are kind of used to it by now. I mean, we know what we signed up for, right? But
Right.
there's just a lot of other options. And especially with the return on the investment being a little bit lower for traditional college education right now, we don't want them second guessing it. We don't want them second guessing how fantastic of a career path it could be.
Right.
Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. Everybody wants to be a social media influencer. Does anybody really want to work 12 hours a day, 6 days a week for 7 or 8 years before they catch their first real promotion? No. So let's make it a little more fun and engaging, right? People love to learn, and especially about food and beverage. People love to learn. Like, we've got some cool stuff, cool food products, really interesting people, eclectic people, right? Smart people. So let's capitalize on the things that are great about the business, make the not so great stuff a little bit easier. And hopefully, we can really bridge that enthusiasm gap that is really taking place in that younger subset that is just entering the business. And I think that'll help us solve some of our human resources and recruiting challenges that we face in the future.
Well, we talk about the recruiting challenges. There's the efforts that we do put into recruiting. Um, we don't want to find the right fit, and then only to bring them in to realize that, hey, this isn't for me. This is not what I signed up for.
Yeah.
I you know the fun and the culture and the community and all the things that we talk about as industry people,
Mhm.
as being, the reason why we stay, or the reason why we got into it. um, we don't want these people to come in after all of our efforts and all the time we spend training them, uh, to find out that, yeah, but then you've got to do all this other stuff, and that really sucks, right?
Yeah, it's a rude awakening. That first day that you have glassware and silverware inventory at 9 a.m. and then you have a 12 p.m. meeting and then you have a 2 o'clock training seminar and then you have 15 minutes to grab a bite to eat and then you're on the floor at 5 and then before you know it you're like, where did that last 14 hours go?
Right.
There's only so many of those days that I think we're going to be allowed to get away with as we move into the future. The word is out on what else is out there in the world. Social media, the way the internet has changed people's mentality about the jobs that they work and the futures that they want for themselves.
Right.
We're doing ourselves a great disservice if we're not congruent with those desires in the hospitality industry. Let's recognize that. Let's get back to basics, back to what the hospitality was really all about, and the rest will take care of itself. The recruiting will take care of itself. But we have to unlock that enthusiasm again and really get that passion fired up again. And then we'll be back in business in the hospitality industry. But I know, here in Vegas right now, there's definitely a shortage in the labor pool for great people, great restaurant people. So, obviously, I want to create a piece of technology. I want to be successful. We all want to do. But a real sticking point for me is like, I want to make this better. Like, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm over 2 decades into this, and I don't like where it's kind of pointed right now. Let's make it better. Let's make it fun again. Let's keep this the fantastic job that it can be, and the fantastic career path that I know it should be.
Yeah, and like I said yesterday, that garden is not dead.
Mhm.
The people love the personal connection. They love the culture. They uh, love the camaraderie. They love being a part of the group and a part of the show and all of those things. And when we go back to like we said, like I was talking about Xenia, like I talk about in when I do training. 800 years before Christ, we were doing hospitality,
Yeah.
and the core of it hasn't really changed since then. It's about welcoming people into your home and into your restaurant, and
Nope.
breaking bread with them, and sharing stories, and sharing information, and being a part of that culture,
Hmm.
which really embraces people. I think what we've done is in many cases, in many ways, we have started treating our staff and middle management as an inconvenience. Where,
Oh, wow.
right? I mean,
That's so true. I mean, you know, and I think a little bit of this is a byproduct of the fact that restaurant industry as a whole has gone down the corporate path a little bit, and there are some decisions that are made that look fantastic on paper but
yeah,
may not reflect well with the human element. And that's maybe the growing pains of any industry, right? We have to
yeah,
streamline things. Large corporations have to make it so that we don't run costs up too high on items. Menu items can't get too high, so there is a place for that. But it's finding that harmony, finding that balance, not losing that human element in the tasks that we assign our new people and our people that have been with us for a long time, not losing sight of people's happiness and their enjoyment being a crucial part of what we do. And we're not too far from that. Like you said, that garden hasn't dried up. I mean, we've got it in spades. We've got the coolest thing. Like when I
still
teach
there.
people about wine, it's they're excited about it. So
Yeah.
I'm enthusiastic about it. I think we're going to be all right. I think we're going to figure it out. We're going to find a way for corporations to be harmonious with our hospitality professionals, and we'll get back on it for sure.
I think what's happening is we've come to a point where we're kind of at the precipice, and we have started having these conversations again. People like you are out there having that conversation. I'm having it as well en masse, and where we are really turning back into our own establishment, and to our own people, and looking and going, okay, so where as an industry did we go wrong? How can we fix this, and do we really need to take it back to almost organic gardening again, to right as a to make it real again? And I don't I
That's
we you and I can talk training all day long. There was one point that we talked about as part of the app, and I don't want to kind of lose focus of that because it's super cool.
mhm.
Reviews in real time.
Oh yeah, yeah. I know that was something that so look, there are so many different metrics that we follow in to make a restaurant successful. And I understand that when you are running a group of restaurants and you're looking at your restaurant ecosystem from 10,000 feet, that you need these metrics as a barometer for how successful the health of your overall business is. I think that sometimes we get a little off the rails. Those Yelp reviews can get a little silly sometimes, as can any of them. But I think looking at them as a whole is important to see what direction you're going. And one of the things that I wanted to incorporate in the app that I'm building is a way that restaurant managers in real time could view all of their social media reviews in one place. Open Table, Yelp, Google reviews. There's really no need to interact with those people, I think it's just about having that data. You got to give people the data to make the good decision. So there'll be a screen on the management side and on the desktop side where the managers can kind of look at the flow of the reviews that they're receiving from those social media outlets. And I felt like that was a critical point, because I know how important that is in the executive level. I know it's important that the credit of the restaurant and the establishment is reflected in the reviews that they receive, and I wanted to make sure that we were cognizant of that as a management team.
Well, I think being able to address comments like that in real time is a big deal. And
Mhm.
I mean, as we say, social media commentary is a double-edged sword. It can be great, and or it can be detrimental in many ways. Where, for example, Google will say, if you say, Siri, give me information on blah 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 restaurant, it will say, well, it's received a such and such star rating. You still want to call them? Google does that. So if we can address those things in real time, if somebody says, oh, well, I was in and had the turkey dinner and the turkey was dry, well, that was an hour ago, right? Or maybe they didn't want to tell you when they were there. You can go back to the kitchen and go, is the turkey dry?
Yeah, right. No,
Right?
that's the truth right there. I think that, you touched on something very important, where those reviews and the ratings that we get inside of those voice activated ecosystems are going to prove very, very important in the future, as it becomes very cool to use those voice activated systems to make your reservations, to buy the products that you want. You better be at the top of the list, or you're going to be paying Amazon and Google a lot of money to be at the top of that list. So you might as well do it organically and embrace it.
Yeah.
When somebody says, Siri, book me a reservation at a steakhouse, and they're either going by the steakhouse that is paying for the most advertising, or the steakhouse is the most highly rated, you better be one of those two, and you really don't want to have to pay for it every single time. So
Right.
the best way to do it is in real time, keep track of all these things. And then when voice starts to become really the cool thing that everybody does, you're already going to be in the driver's seat for that kind of thing. So definitely excited about that piece. Think it's super important that we recognize that. And I do think that there's a way to kind of game that system in our favor. And that's just by staying on top of it and being cognizant of those reviews in real time, for sure.
Well, if you're able to do that inside of the same app, and as management, you can get those pings. Hey, this just happened. Hey, this just came up. I think that it's a great opportunity to be on top of that, because again, if it's something that you can address in the moment, then you don't have 50 other people having the same poor thing happen, and 45 of them saying nothing, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely. That yeah, how much data can we get about our guest interactions? That's what it's all about, and that gets us to the best decisions. And that's what we want to do. And again, it's like, why do we want our managers sifting through all of these websites trying to collate all of this information when we can just have the tech do it for us? If we save 15 to 30 minutes out of one manager's day just by doing that, that's that time that they could be spent on the floor doing other things, engaging with their staff. Like, this is what it's about. Let's tackle these each individual pain points one at a time. Let's get it done, introduce the tech, and get back to the hospitality side. And I think that's a great catalyst for that, is being able to monitor that stuff.
for sure. Derek, we've got some questions, which is
Awesome.
always fun.
Awesome.
The first question is from Lucas E. Wall. And what happens? Oh, what results have your early adopters seen? Well, you're in beta phase right now. So what
Sure.
are some of the things? What are some of the challenges so far that people are saying that are actually trying it out?
So it's interesting. I actually had a kind of a small incarnation that I hand built to kind of get it working with some of the people that I know. And then I'm taking a little bit of that data and incorporating it with the development team that is working overseas. And the biggest thing that I've seen so far was the ability to send the training material. Actually,
Right.
that was something that has been kind of a game changer. The idea of of a server or bartender not having to walk around with a training packet or something along those lines. I've got servers that I've worked with that have a stack of paper in their back pocket at all times. Not everybody is great at memorizing stuff, right? Like,
Right.
and so for me, the early game changer has been the fact that we can cut down on all of the excess paper that is just existing in everybody's pocket and get them almost like a digital filing cabinet in their pocket with all of the information, menu information, all at once. And that has kind of been the point of excitement for the most people so far.
For sure. We have a question from, or a comment also from Dwayne Keller. This is our world famous chef, Dwayne Keller, who's also going to be on the show on Thursday.
Awesome.
Hello, chef. Managers should never be in the office during service. Training is an ongoing task, especially during service. You should never hear a manager say, "I don't have time to train." You know, and we're you and I, Derek, are both in the training realm in a big way, and Chef Dwayne Keller is world famous for his approach to training and management. And you know what? He's right. He's absolutely right. You should
Yeah.
never say, I don't have time to teach you that. I don't have time to train." But if we can loosen up the busy work, it certainly helps to get more time to do it. Right.
We're realistic too, right? There's only so much time in a day. And if we do have too many tasks and too much busy work for our management staff, they run the risk of not having the time. And that's correct. It's unacceptable to not have the time to put into our staff development. But we have to look at it from the ownership team and leadership team perspective as well. Like, they need certain things done, and I get that. But at the end of the day, we're just going to have people that are dreading having to work extra hours or stay late to accomplish these tasks, and then the staff is not getting the best training material because it's kind of thrown together haphazardly. It all goes together, right? The management team is never going to have the complete legitimacy to lead unless they have their stuff organized and sorted out. And they're never going to be able to be completely sorted out with all of the busy work and mindless tasks that get thrown at them. So let's take some of that off. Let's supplant that with extra time to do the training and development. And I think it's a win-win for everybody.
Absolutely. We have one more LinkedIn comment from Arlette Adu, and it's a comment, and I have an answer for it already. But what do you do as an employee when you have an incompetent manager? Because a lot do not know their job. This could
Yes.
affect the team or the restaurant. You can have the best team, but if the management staff doesn't have the knowledge and experience or appropriate, would be a waste of time and reputation. Well, I mean, there's no app to help that.
There's not.
It's an in-house thing.
Maybe that's something we could collaborate on, Chef, for the next app. But
I agree.
I think that there's one thing that we can never lose sight of, and that is that we have to come at those relationships and those instances with a touch of empathy, and there has to be empathy on the service staff side, the management side. We have to realize that maybe you are an industry professional, you have been a server or a bartender for 20 plus years, you know your craft, and there's going to be people who are entry level, who are just getting in, who are maybe not as engaged as you. And at first glance, it's definitely frustrating, right? I get it. I've worked for managers who just don't want to be there anymore. But I have to feel a little empathy for people these days, that maybe they haven't found their passion, and that's hindering you right now. But that might be you someday. So we always have to be empathetic to that situation. We always have to make sure that we have a great line of communication with our general manager and the operators of the restaurant, so that we can get together and say, look, the manager maybe doesn't know the menu as well, and maybe doesn't know the cocktail list. There's a lot of things that make a manager underperform. So I think that we have to be a little bit empathetic to the situation that they're in. Have that open line of communication with the management team as well as the service staff. And I know that this sounds a little utopian, but at the same way, we have to instill a little bit of this empatheticness, a little kindness, a little more mindfulness into the way that we're going about this, and understand that we all have the same goal. We all want to be successful. We all want the restaurant to be successful. So let's get together, roll our sleeves up, and figure it out, and make sure that we're always doing it in a positive manner.
I think the comment of empathy is key in that sometimes you'll have a new manager. It takes a while to get their feet under them, and staff doesn't always give them a chance to get there, or they get judged on their first day or two of performance when they still don't know where the broom closet is, right? And then I think if there is that understanding and that hey, we're here to help each other, then fantastic. I also, on the other side, I feel like it's the either the general manager or the operators onus to make sure that middle management isn't just set out to be babysitters, or discount and void workers, right? So where they also have to be trained in the same level, not necessarily always with the same level that the servers are for maybe product knowledge, but in customer service. Because what happens in many cases now is if a table has a complaint, we'll void that off the bill, or we're just going to discount that, and rather than actually addressing the problem, we've just taken that off of the bill. Can we get you something else? The middle management is missing the training key as well. We talk about training staff, we talk about frontline staff, bartender staff, back of the house, but we're not investing in those middle management people as well as we should either.
I agree. I think that there's a couple pieces there. One is that I have learned a lot about food and beverage by creating dynamic training material and doing the research,
right,
and having that time carved out for managers to get involved. Make a pre-shift about the best chefs of the century. Make a pre-shift about the Harry's bar cocktails and things like that is important, and that is another way for managers to get better. And I think that no doubt there's definitely a need for that, but everybody has a learning curve. Hopefully that new manager that comes in has the passion to learn, and we have to be we have to root for their success.
right.
I've been on the bartending staff and the service staff that is like, oh great, another new manager, how many have we had, this and that, and it's almost like they're not rooting for them to fail, but they find it amusing if it does take a little bit of extra time, or if there's some difficulty there to get up and running. Whereas we should be rooting for the success of our bosses harder than anything else, because it makes your life more profitable and more easier. So I think that you need to look at that like, hey, we really, really want this person to succeed. If you notice a brand new manager is struggling to jump in and take a dinner order, or struggling with the cocktail menu, that's a perfect opportunity for you, being the pro that you are, to pull them aside and say, hey, when I'm slammed, it would really help if you could jump in and take a cocktail order and get the bottled water down on the table. Let me tell you how I go about that. Or what, our bartenders get a little bit backed up in their service well, and if we had somebody to just go back there and run a couple racks of glasses, it would really help. Let me tell you what I run into, right? Bring that positivity and bring solutions, and have that open dialogue, and your life is going to be easier for it.
For sure. And I don't want to forget to mention this, Derek, but you've just launched a podcast.
Yeah.
There's two out right now. One is motivation. The other one is mindful management.
Yep.
And I think that people can get more engaged, get more information, get more mentorship from you, and to continue this conversation, because the conversations need to be had. And I think that we could sit and quote philosophy about the hospitality industry all day long, and this is this is a great opportunity for people to learn more from you and about you, and about
Yes.
what you're doing. And I think the fun thing too is you're super open to talking about the challenges of kind of jumping in and trying new things too. Like we talked about jumping in and trying the podcast. We talked about jumping in and the challenges of starting that, and the same thing with jumping in and starting, doing your own app. So
Yeah.
people who are interested in getting their own voices, maybe as a next step, in the industry, maybe you have 20 years worth of experience, 30 years worth of experience, 40 years of experience. You want to get out there, and we kind of had a fun chat about this, about what happens when now your knees are too sore, your back sore, your hip hurts, and you're not on the floor anymore for 10 hours or on the
Yes.
line anymore.
Yeah.
These are amazing ways to get out there, and Derek is a professional in personal branding. He's a great guy to talk to. So for people who are out there who want to expand on getting their knowledge out there, and to be able to extend their usefulness and education and ongoing education in teaching and learning in the industry, Derek's an amazing resource for that.
Well, thanks a lot. I appreciate that. I felt like, looking at things a little differently, I feel like first off, the personal brand is the new resume. And I think that it would be in a lot of people's best interest, especially if you're thinking about that, maybe the restaurant business isn't for you, or maybe you just want to do something a little different. I think that it's important to start looking at it, read a couple articles about personal branding. It's a lot more than just opening up an Instagram account and posting pictures about your life or what you had for lunch.
Right.
It's about designing a message, and a one that is authentic to you, and making sure that your social media channels just function in cohesion and deliver that message effectively. And if you just start there, that's a great place. And podcasting is, a very, very simple thing to get going, difficult to design, and you want to put a lot of thought into what you're doing. And certainly for me, it's something that I'm tacking on to a lot of other things I have going on, but I felt like it was important. The application that I use is Anchor, but you can use any of them on your laptop, anything at all. And the most important thing is that I get asked, how do I communicate? How do I do this? And the most thing that I can think of is by any means necessary. Podcast, blog, personal website. Let's say you're really good with Instagram stories or anything like that, or you like to make silly videos on TikTok, save it and put it out on Twitter and Instagram. Make all of those social media channels function effectively and professionally for you. And it's a great first step to kind of get the ball rolling in a direction that you may want to go in.
There you go. You sound very Gary V. Haha.
Yeah, no, listen, I'm telling you, like, I am not shy about the type of motivation that I get and where I seek it. I actually got a chance to meet Gary Vee and hang with him a little bit earlier. I watched him a lot on Wine Library that he used to do, and watching that kind of progression. And you can say what you want about the amount of content that he puts out, or all the other things, but what he's talking about is very true about how we move forward as professionals. And it doesn't have to be in any one format, right? Just make sure that you're out there getting your message, controlling the narrative on your own life. Don't let other people write that narrative for you.
Well, it's funny you mentioned about the amount of content that Gary puts out. And it all comes from the heart. It all comes from the right place, and I think that's where you're coming from too. Frank Kern, who works with Grant Cardone and Tony Robbins and all of these guys. I actually watched a video with him, and he broke it down on who was getting the most traction as far as viewership and whatnot. Gary puts out approximately 6 pieces per platform per day.
It's a lot.
So, and on average, and Frank Kern was doing on average 7, and Grant Cardone was doing just under 8 as far as we go in a percentage. So when we talk about putting out content and getting your voice out there. that's it's not a lot. I know Gary says, find 100 pieces, to put all over the place, but in reality, he's doing 6, and you can't get rid of them, and not that you want to. And Frank is doing that, and then Grant's doing almost 8, per platform. But just doing that and following your advice and making sure that it's congruent is making these people known, and their message and their word is getting out, and their knowledge is getting out there too. So
it's so true. And I took a step back and looked at it like this, right? So we will let our clothing and handbag companies market to us to no end. We will let our politicians market to us to no end. We will let all of these forms of marketing come into our lives and almost weaponize the platforms that they choose, whether it be TV or the YouTube ads or whatever. And, why can't you take an ounce of that and make it work for you? These social media platforms are free for, your phone can do most of the things that you do. I shoot all of my videos on my phone right now just because it's easier, and I don't have the time to really put into intense video editing software. So, not that we ever want to, weaponize anything, but at the same time, take the resources that are available to you and use them for your own benefit. It's great that your cat has its own Instagram, or your dog has its own Instagram, or your guinea pig has its own Facebook page. And that's awesome, because, what that's doing is that's teaching you how to communicate, whether you know it or not. But
right.
now take a step back and use that same effort, time, and energy to control your narrative, build your brand, and put out the content that really gets people thinking about you in the way that you want to be thought about. And all it is just changing your focus just a little bit. You have the tools. God, is there a 16 or 17-year-old that doesn't know how to make great funny videos on TikTok right now? Is there, that's a skill set right there that you can utilize. So I would say, work with the tools that you're given. It's not impossible to do. And just build that brand up a little bit, and hey, you know what, keep doing those dog videos too, because they're pretty cool.
Right. Well, today we're live on LinkedIn Live. We're live on YouTube, Periscope. We're being seen around the world. I have Derek Engles as my guest from Las Vegas, Nevada, where it's far warmer than Calgary today. And as my producer is giggling in the background because it was very cold this morning.
Oh man, that stinks. I grew up in New York, so I feel for you.
There you go. Derek, thanks so much for being on. It's awesome to talk hospitality with you. I love where you're coming from, and your way that you're implementing your knowledge and your experience into something that's going to streamline and actually help people. Not from a marketing point of view, but from a functionality point of view.
Absolutely.
Your efforts in getting your message out there on the podcast, I think, is fantastic. I'm looking forward to seeing your success in that. And you're looking for people to help with restaurants with beta testing as well. Am I right with the RM?
Yeah. I would love. I'm doing the debugging, and once I have some hard concrete examples to show people, I definitely would love some people to join me on this journey for sure. A little beta test help would be appreciated, and then I have no problem helping develop that training and development ecosystem. I really want to build partnerships with people. Like I said, this isn't just an effort to throw an app up in the app store and make a bunch of quick money. I really want to build those connections and build that trust with the right organizations.
Well, we in our organization are all about global village and everybody being able to be a part of education and sharing those things and helping out. And I think this is a great opportunity for operators to work with you, not only to get your education, but also to say, hey, what about this? Maybe that's something we haven't thought of yet. So exactly. That's amazing. So if you're an operator and you want to be a part of Derek's beta system, in beta level testing, for virtual restaurant manager, then you can contact him on LinkedIn, which I think is probably the best way to get a hold of him. Again, today my
Yeah.
guest has been Derek Engles. Thank you so much for your time today. This has been amazing. We could do it all day long.
I know, right? It's I could talk shop forever, but I know that we all have to go and execute our normal day in day out routine. But thank you so much. I love what you guys are doing. It's so outstanding. I love seeing lifelong hospitality professionals getting involved in some other things and really getting that message out. You guys have been super positive, and I really look forward to watching your success.
Thanks so much. And again, if you are watching us on YouTube, like and subscribe. If you're on LinkedIn, make a comment, say hello. You can contact Derek on there. We'll be doing a bit of after show stuff where we will pop back in and answer your comments if we haven't had an opportunity to do that online. And thanks again. My guest today has been Derek Engles. Have a great day, Derek. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Jeff.